in my inner Jim Carrey, but that really is for another podcast. So, welcome to Hacking Business Technology. We're on episode 73, which is kind of crazy to me. We're on a good streak for choosing topics there for a little bit, and now we're just fully back to whatever topic is at hand, which can be dangerous, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever's keeping you up at night.
So welcome, Mr. Hooper. Mark's not here. He's actually I think he's still on vacation, actually. He got married 11 days ago. Congratulations, Mr. Mark.
Congratulations, Mark.
And for, what's funny is before we start the podcast, I always put it on Slack, and my my ability to give attention to hacking business technology is inversely proportional to the amount of work I have to do that I get paid for. And so this time what happened is I think I posted it maybe an hour or two ago. Who's in this week? And we just found it's hard to get in front of that sort of thing. And so I'd sort of like to talk about that a little bit is ops. How do you find yourself keeping yourself true to the things that you've committed to, Matt? Like, when you say that you're going to do something every week or you're going to do something every month or whatever, how do you keep up with it? How do you keep tabs on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. This has been my continual challenge throughout my career. And it was great when I was in IT operations, providing system support and a systems engineer and fixing servers, because you always knew what you needed to work on because you were just basically focused on priority ones.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was firefighting, classic firefighting. And it was really, in a way, everybody complains about it and everybody hated it. And I did hate it because it was frustrating. But I loved it because I didn't have to plan. And plan was such a four-letter word for me, right? It was so, it was really keeping the firefighting going. I find now in my role and in my life, that can't be the case because I can't whip up a fairly robust presentation or a well thought out analytical research that I might have to do. That takes some time, and you have to set that time aside. And so it is hard. It's hard for me to focus. I find focus to be a big challenge.
Yeah, interesting. So, man. I have the exact same problem. What I did recently, actually, is I put whiteboards back in my office. I don't know if you ever remember. There was probably some podcast, actually, where I used whiteboards. And it was just a piece of plexiglass. And it was really good especially for like long-term trajectory focused, because I could list those objectives up there. What projects am I working on? Like, what are the 6 categories of work that I'm actually doing? That sort of stuff. But I still find like there's something missing in it. There's some sort of, what do I want to say? Not event management, not like network operations center, but I need something that will just do ticklers and in
Nagger, the electronic nagger.
An electronic nagger. And I've used Siri for this, of course. Remind me to take out the garbage tonight at 9 p.m. I've used calendars for this. I actually have calendar entries for when my kids get on and off the bus, so that I get an alert and I know that I'm going to get this alert. I have yet to find a decent system that lets you plan out regular tasks, have notifications in a way that you want them to be done, and be dependable, that is effective or cost effective.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the next Google service, is Google Nag.
Yeah. That can easily get in there too. I don't want to fill out 4 forms and tell it 10 things, or it needs to be super easy. Like you said, Siri, remind me at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, or the whiteboard where you're doodling it down, or even if it is simple entry into the computer, I would still be okay with one field on a form, but that's it.
Yeah.
Huh.
There used to be a service, I don't know if it's still in business, it used to be called Follow Up CC. And if you got an email from somebody, you could just reply back to, and you would just simply put the date and time, and you could use an international format, American format. Somehow it had the intelligence to figure it out in the subject line. It would resend you that email on that date and time if you just sent it off to, reminder and follow up CC or whatever it was. Yeah, it was a really, really slick little service. We actually integrated into Smack at the tail end there, but it is hard. I find what it is for me, Baron, is the wanting to make sure that I'm focused on the most important things, but that I'm also not holding other people up. So I'm always checking most services, except Slack today. I apologize. To make sure that I'm not holding somebody else up. But I knew I was going to be here today, so I wasn't checking Slack that frequently. But like email, I don't check email in so much to realize if there's something that I need to do for me. I check it to make sure that there's nothing that I don't need to do for somebody else. Like if an SE has a quick question, or somebody wants me to review a document real fast so they can send back to a client, I don't want that to hold up. So the problem with the electronic nagger is what relevance is to you isn't relevant to me. Like we all have our own personal relevances, so it needs to have a level of a learning engine.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point there, because when I think stand-ups, I think about blockers, and if someone, like you said, in that review situation, sometimes that's holding up a lot of work, and I wish there was a way to just have transparency into that. And I think I envision task management basically to do this, unified task management along with unified communications, but I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. So people do what you pointed out, and that's workarounds, hacks. How do I CC this email address so that it tickles me in a week?
Or like you do, I book in my calendar everything that I need to know. Like I'll book in my calendar, you need to create this document because the submittal's 2 days after it, like for presentations.
Yeah.
Like all my travel goes in my calendar. This is when I need to leave to go catch a flight. Here's my flight number. Here's the hotel I'm staying at. Because I don't want to go digging through email. I want it right there in my calendar. Because that's a finite time, right?
Yeah, and I've never found calendars actually to be that feature rich. I mean, even when it comes to just sharing, it's just not, there's something not public enough about calendars.
Yeah, right.
I think anyway. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, there's no importance level. Like I can't look at I can see that you're blocked off for this hour, but I can't see that you're doing something really important.
Yeah, ideally, let's say I was invited to 4 things during that block of time. You could see the thing that I'm going to go to, the 3 things that I'm not going to go to, and you could see why that other thing is important to me, like what the agenda is, how it aligns to my objectives.
Who invited you?
Yeah, who invited me? Yeah, that's huge, actually, right? Because it comes down to context, and then it'd be really interesting to have systems that were that self-aware or that useful, because it would quickly, I assume that it would quickly expose the politics within a culture and a system.
Yeah.
Right? Like whose meetings does nobody skip?
Yeah, and I want analytics at the same time that those people actually went to the meetings. How many emails and how much web surfing were they doing during that meeting?
Dude, I love that stuff.
Who's showing up to the meeting and actually not paying attention and adding value?
So what's great, I mean, that is actually one of the benefits of having a remote workforce. As you know, our company's basically all remote. We have a couple headquarters or whatever, but with WebEx, you can actually see if people have WebEx as the application in focus on their machine. And you can see whether they're typing or not. And then what's the other thing? I don't remember what the other thing was, but there's a third thing that you can actually spy on employees, basically.
You can see them. It doesn't show you the light on your camera, but it actually is watching. No, I'm just kidding.
No, not that. That would be scary.
That would be bad. There's
That's
a lot of WebEx meetings that I've showed up to not completely dressed, so that would not have been good.
yeah, that's true. 4 a.m. calls, yeah. Or you stumble in, you join the call, and then they're like, okay, well, we're waiting for 5 minutes for Joe and Bob and Steve, and you go and make coffee. Like
That's right.
You don't need to see me leave.
That's right.
It's fine. Just trust me. This is where objectives-based leadership and management comes in handy. Interesting. So, speaking of work, what are you working on, Hooper?
2016 event planning. So we got our interchange conference, which is our yearly conference. So we've added a strategic track to that, and I've been put on the committee for that. So that's fun. That's a fun, different thing, planning an event as the, I've worked, with HDI and ITSMF and SIM and a bunch of places on their events.
Yeah.
But never as the actual organization,
Yeah, you were never responsible.
Right.
For the outcomes. If it fails, it's the egg on your face, not some nonprofit.
The annual Vigilant User Conference wasn't that big.
I thought that's why you had so many kids. It increased attendance.
Well, this is right. Yeah. She doubled it every year. So no, it's fun. It's good. It's interesting to see how the tracks come together. And when you're a product company and you're thinking about why people come to your conference, it's a multi-dimensional, And what's really interesting for me is having gone to ServiceNow for the past, 3 or 4 years. And then this year, comparing it to Landesk's and now helping Landesk plan theirs. I mean, obviously ServiceNow has done a really great job. Knowledge events are excellent. They're a lot of fun, very well organized. A ton of work goes into them. Now I'm really getting to see just how much work really goes into that. And what I have to give ServiceNow kudos on is, they just brilliantly did a good job of making all their customers be the content creators. Because here now at Landesk, all the really busy people like the sales engineers and, myself and Patricia with evangelists, like all the people who actually have the content development skills are killing themselves trying to create content. Whereas customers could have put this together and would have been better off.
Yeah, and it's valuable. I had the exact same experience. We hold an annual all-employee meeting. It was actually last week. And I did the same thing. Like, I just couldn't create enough content. I kept coming up with awesome ideas. And at one point, I just said, well, let's do it as an unconference.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've come across that conversation because you've had experience with that. It's probably tougher with a product company and having a user conference.
Yeah, that might be a little tougher, but something that's funny, unconferences just are so much more fun, and they're so much more valuable. And some of my best takeaways have come from the unconferences. When you look at the amount of preparation that goes into an unconference, it's almost nothing.
Yeah.
But the interaction and engagement is off the chart. Whereas the preparation for your traditional conferences is huge, and the level of engagement, is off the chart. And even in one of my feedback on presentation at Fusion, which I got great feedback and my scores are really high, but it was funny some of the dings I got, well, if he could stop jumping around the stage, he would have been easier to pay attention to. I was like, well, come on, it's just so boring. Talking about ITSM best practices is not the most exciting thing. So
it isn't.
Yeah.
I was in a meeting recently where someone was talking about innovating service management, and it started off as a bore. It was totally sleepy. And the first sentence, he said it in a monotone voice, but he said, this is revolutionizing the way that we deliver services. And I shouted. I went, yeah! And I started clapping. People lit up. They freaked out, and the guy said, yeah, we should be excited about this because it actually is innovative.
Yeah, we should celebrate
it. And it's okay to geek out. It's okay to love the mundane. Believe it or not, it's one of the secrets to being happy is just being fascinated.
Yes. Yeah.
Just do it. Be fascinated with the mundane. And it's okay. It's okay to do it. No one's going to judge you.
Yeah, it really is. I still use the opener that I stole from Chris Dancy, which is, here's what else is going on while I'm giving this presentation, right? And I show and I use the Conference 2 rules. I say, this is your conference and you have 2 feet, use them. If I'm not talking about what you like, get up and leave. I'm not going to be, upset, disappointed. And I really don't. I mean, I want people to, when the audience stays because they're engaged and they're learning something, awesome. If people started getting up and leaving, then I know what I'm talking about's not on point.
Yeah. Yeah, and a good speaker will adjust. I think it's difficult with some topics to do that. It's definitely difficult with some demos to do that. Ugh.
Yeah.
Demos where I've gone off script. Oh my gosh, that's another podcast. Oh man, my palms are sweating. I'm getting a little nervous.
So do you demo to customers or do you demo to internal folks?
Anyone. It depends on the topic, but usually, yeah, it's both. So the thing that I sell for Maryville specifically is usually creative, whether it's illustrations or animations or videos or something. And so typically when I'm doing a demo, I'm either drawing in Illustrator live, like on the screen, they can see what I'm sketching out, or I'm putting together a storyboard for them, or if I have time to prepare, which is sometimes a luxury, I'll put it in PowerPoint and make it actually look and feel like the animation. I'll say, this is what's happening in this frame, and I click, and then this is what's happening in that frame. And so I'm usually demoing that sort of thing. If it's training, then it's usually recorded and I don't have to live demo. And I love recorded training, man. It's so much easier. It's so much easier to make 2 hours of content into 5 minutes if you're doing it recorded versus live.
Yep.
And it seems to me that the more time you invest up front, the higher quality it is, and the more likely people are to watch it. I don't know, I've never really looked at it, but I'm sure that there's some principles around this when it comes to marketing and attention. But I'm just shocked how much ITIL could have just benefited from having video training.
Absolutely.
And
conceptual training, like having conceptual art and conceptual animation, walk people through, the stories, that would have been huge. But now to do it, I mean, if you actually did it now, if you actually took ITIL and told the stories, people would be like, oh, that's what my grandpa used to do? Really? Because no one operates like that anymore in IT. And shops that would try to operate like that, they would go, what are you doing here? That's not what we do here.
Yeah, that's true. There are elements that people pull from it that actually make sense to still pay attention to.
Right.
And then there are portions of it. I think the funny thing is that it's like go ahead.
Take the service catalog, for instance, right? Like take the ITIL defined service catalog with the service pipeline and what's a retired service and defining all that work in and around that IT services and getting them all. If you went to an organization today and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, I can't imagine a successful CIO going, we're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'm focused on business revenue. I'm not focused on being an IT provider. I'm focused on driving business. That's stuff I look for my suppliers for. I mean, so where is the modernization of effectiveness, without creative? You can't, because you can't grasp it. You can't implement it,
Yeah, I think I love the idea of bimodal. I think it should be omnimodal or whatever. I mean, it's a spectrum, right?
Right.
But I see some value of service management as it is prescribed by ITIL as being effective at providing a foundation for business revenue. And there's foundational boring elements. And I think that is probably what a lot of us have been doing for a long time, is making sure that you can tie into foundation data. If you're a retailer, it's your stores, it's your customers, it's your lines of business, it's your suppliers. It's those things that you need to pay attention to and tie into. And you've thought about them at at a service layer to say, if I need to tap into our POS system, here's how I do it, and here's the map of how I do it, and here's the levels of rigor around it and the different governance I have around it. But I think that what happened is a lot of people interpreted that way beyond the scope of what they needed to.
Absolutely.
They did it for doing it.
It's been said many times that the most important book of ITIL is the last and smallest book, which is CSI.
Yeah.
Right, because it's the guidance that you have throughout ITIL, it just doesn't apply to everybody in the same ways. Which it never was intended to do that per se by the authors. I get that, but the reality is there's just some things in there that confuse people, and it makes people take the wrong action at the wrong time. They're just, someone who's trying to drive, for instance, will we need to have problem management because we don't know root cause? No, you don't. You need to have problem management because you want to weed out systemic issues that are happening and causing systematic problems, not, the fact that there's a particular instance you don't know the root cause for. These are business justification, these level of maturity there. They may not have the awareness of their systems, may not have knowledge built into it to actually do effective problem management. And that would only be a stifled process. It would only completely shut down. Like doing problem management without a configuration management system is just stupid. It's silly, right? People who try to do that. So it's like that these things are thrown out there and people just don't grasp them at the right time. They're not focused on the right things at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it feels like anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you see other organizations where they're inundated with the daily operations, and they're so frustrated by the fact that they can't control or get a hold of all the incidents that are coming in. It's like, well, time out. Did you ever think about changing your release strategy? Did you ever think about talking to your testing folks about doing a better job testing this stuff? Go up the stream a little bit, So there's the dichotomies. You got those two classes where, some people look so holistically they can't get anything done. Some people look so myopically that they don't understand. They're reacting and completely reactive.
Yeah, self-awareness and then understanding that you're a part of the system. And it's a system. It's going to break. Man, I see engineering minds talk about this a lot. I don't want a Prius because it's got 2 engines instead of 1. And I'm thinking, no, it's actually got 3 systems. 2 of them are engines. The third one's a human, and that's the one that's going to fail. Right? So, I don't know. Fix the people and try to have some trust in them so that, you understand that they will at least try. Oh, man, if you can hire people that will fix your systems, hire them.
Yes. Well, I love engineers. The biggest problem I have with engineers, though, is they forget there's a ratio of like 1 to 10,000 in the human society of engineer to non-engineer. So the majority of people ever using your product are not you.
That's true.
So every time you think, well, I think this would be a good idea, it's like, time out. You weren't paid to think. You were paid to build. Yeah. We have feedback. We have feedback loops. We have end users. We have, sometimes there's intelligent things that come from engineers. Don't get me wrong, but that's their problem.
Yeah. Designers and customers. Get customers and designers in the same room.
That's it.
They'll solve the world's problems, and none of them will be able to execute on it.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It'll all be hypothetical and unbuildable.
Bring in the engineers, because that's how you hack business technology. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.